Dr. Elena Martinez pressed her face against the observation window of the research ship New Horizons. The alien vessel floated in the darkness ahead, its smooth silver surface reflecting the stars like a mirror. After 30 years of searching, the galaxy humanity had finally found proof they were not alone. Beautiful, isn't it? Captain Lisa Chun joined Elena at the window. Never thought I'd see the day. Elena nodded, her heart racing with excitement and fear. As the lead scientist on the mission, she would be the first human to speak with an alien species. The weight of that responsibility felt heavier than the ship's artificial gravity. All teams, prepare for contact, Commander Jake Morrison announced over the ship's communication system. His voice carried the calm authority of someone who had spent 20 years in the military, but Elena could hear the tension underneath. The alien ship had appeared 3 days ago, dropping out of faster-than-light travel just outside Earth's solar system. It made no hostile moves, simply waited. When Earth's government sent the New Horizons to investigate, the aliens had responded with a simple message in perfect English: "We wish to meet." Elena walked to the laboratory where her team waited. Dr. Amy Foster looked up from her translation equipment, her blonde hair tied back in a practical ponytail. "The linguistic analysis is complete. They've been listening to our radio signals for decades. Their English is better than most humans." "That's both impressive and terrifying," muttered Dr. Carl Jackson, the team's anthropologist. He was a thin man with nervous energy, always adjusting his glasses when he felt worried. "How long have they been watching us?" Lieutenant Rick Parker, their military escort, checked his sidearm for the 3rd time. "Does it matter? They're here now?" He was young for an officer, barely 25. With the kind of confidence that came from never having faced a real threat, Elena gathered her team around the central table. "Remember, we're scientists first. This is about understanding, not confrontation. We have no idea what they want or how they think." The ship's communication system crackled to life. "Contact team to the docking bay. Our visitors are ready to board." Elena's hands trembled as she picked up her tablet. The device contained everything humanity knew about potential alien contact protocols, which wasn't much. Most of it was educated guessing based on science fiction movies and hopeful thinking. The docking bay felt enormous when they arrived. The New Horizons was a large ship, but the bay could hold 3 smaller vessels. Emergency lights cast long shadows across the metal floor, and the air recycling system hummed quietly in the background. "Atmospheric readings are normal," Amy reported, checking her instruments. "Whatever they breathe, it's similar to our air." A section of the bay's outer wall began to glow with soft blue light. The alien ship was connecting to their docking port, using technology that made no sound and left no visible seams. Elena had expected mechanical noises, sparks, or at least some indication of how the process worked. Instead, the wall simply opened like a door made of liquid metal. The first alien stepped through, and Elena forgot how to breathe. It stood over 7 feet tall, with skin that looked like polished crystal. The surface reflected light in patterns that shifted as it moved, creating an almost hypnotic effect. It had 4 arms, each ending in hands with long, delicate fingers. Its head was larger than a human's, with features that seemed both familiar and completely foreign. "Greetings," the alien said, its voice carrying a musical quality that made Elena think of wind chimes. "I am Ambassador Veltar of the Cathara. We have traveled far to meet you." Elena stepped forward, forcing herself to speak. "Welcome to our ship. I'm Dr. Elena Martinez, representing Earth's scientific community." She extended her hand in the traditional human greeting, then wondered if that was appropriate. Veltar looked at her outstretched hand for a long moment. Elena noticed that all 4 of his arms remained at his sides, and he stood at least 10 feet away from her group. "We appreciate your welcome, Dr. Martinez. Perhaps we should speak in a more formal setting." "Of course," Elena replied, lowering her hand. "We've prepared a conference room." As they walked through the ship's corridors, Elena noticed how Veltar moved. Despite his size, he seemed to glide rather than walk, making no sound on the metal floor. He also kept his distance from every human they passed, never coming closer than 8 feet to anyone. The conference room was the New Horizons' best attempt at creating a neutral meeting space. The walls were painted in soft colors and the furniture was simple but comfortable. Elena had placed a large table in the center with chairs, arranged to encourage conversation. Veltar entered the room and immediately positioned himself near the far wall, as far from the humans as possible. "This is acceptable," he said, though. Elena noticed he continued to scan the room as if looking for exit routes. "Please sit wherever you're comfortable," Elena offered, gesturing to the chairs. "I prefer to stand if that is acceptable." Veltar's crystalline skin shifted through several colors, from pale blue to deep purple. Elena wondered if this indicated emotion or was simply a normal part of his physiology. Amy activated her recording equipment while Carl made notes about Veltar's behavior. Rick stood near the door, not quite at attention but ready to act if needed. "We have many questions," Elena began, choosing her words carefully. "But first, we want to understand why you've come to meet us." Veltar's color shifted again, settling on a warm golden hue. "Your species has reached the stars. This makes you eligible for contact under Galactic Council protocols." He paused, studying Elena's face. "We have been monitoring your progress." "For some time. How long?" Carl asked, his pen poised over his notepad. "By your calendar, approximately 67 years. Since you first split the atom." Elena felt a chill run down her spine. "You've been watching us since the atomic bomb?" "Yes, the development of nuclear weapons is typically when a species either destroys itself or learns to control its destructive impulses. We wanted to see which path humanity would choose." "And what did you conclude?" Elena asked. Veltar's colors darkened to deep blue. "That remains to be determined." Rick shifted uncomfortably near the door. "Are you saying you consider us a threat?" "All species are evaluated for their potential impact on galactic civilization," Veltar replied diplomatically. "Some species are naturally peaceful, evolving from prey animals or herbivores. Others show more aggressive tendencies." Elena noticed that Veltar's hands had begun to shake slightly, a barely visible tremor that seemed to increase when he looked directly at the humans. "Ambassador, are you feeling well?" "I am functioning normally," Veltar said, but Elena saw him take a small step backward. "We're scientists," Elena said, trying to reassure him. "We're here to learn, not to fight. We're not even weaponized." She gestured to her team's scientific equipment and Rick's single sidearm. Veltar's color shifted rapidly through several hues before settling on a deep red. His hands continued to shake as he spoke. "Then why are your hands shaking when you speak of peace?" Elena looked down at her own hands and realized with surprise that they were indeed trembling. She had been so focused on the historic nature of the meeting that she hadn't noticed her own nervousness. But as she watched Veltar's reaction, she began to understand that his fear wasn't about their weapons or their technology. "You're afraid of us," she said softly. "Fear is not the correct term," Veltar replied, but his colors remained dark red. "Caution is more appropriate. Your species is classified as a dormant predator species in our databases. Such classifications require careful evaluation." Elena felt a strange mix of fascination and concern. They had expected to be the ones feeling afraid and uncertain about first contact. Instead, this advanced alien civilization was treating them like a potential threat. "What makes you think we're predators?" Amy asked, her scientific curiosity overriding her nervousness. Veltar's forearms moved in what might have been a gesture of uncertainty. "Your eyes face forward. Your teeth are designed for tearing meat. Your hands are built for grasping and manipulating objects as tools. Most importantly, your behavior patterns show adaptability and creative problem-solving under stress." "Those sound like positive traits," Carl observed. "They are," Veltar agreed. "That is precisely what makes them dangerous." Elena realized that this first contact was going to be far more complicated than anyone had imagined. They weren't just meeting an alien species. They were confronting how the galaxy saw humanity itself. 3 days after the first meeting, Veltar returned to the New Horizons with what he called educational materials. Elena watched him enter the conference room with the same careful movements, maintaining his distance from every human present. These records will help you understand your place in galactic civilization, Veltar explained, placing a small crystalline device on the table. What you call a holographic projector, we call a memory crystal. It contains the history of the 3 major powers that control this galaxy. Elena activated the device, and the room filled with 3-dimensional images. The first showed a massive city floating in space, its buildings made of the same crystalline material as Veltar's skin. Ships moved between the structures in perfect formation, following what appeared to be carefully planned routes. The Kithara Collective, Veltar said with obvious pride. We have mastered technology beyond your current understanding. Our cities exist in space itself, powered by controlled fusion and maintained by machines that think faster than biological minds. Amy leaned forward to study the images. How long have you been spacefaring? 12,000 of your years, Veltar replied. We evolved from creatures similar to your Earth sea creatures, filter feeders that lived in shallow waters. Our natural tendency is toward cooperation and shared resources. The image changed to show a different civilization. These beings appeared to be made of pure energy, shifting between solid and gaseous forms. They moved through structures that seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. The Zephyrian mind state, Veltar continued. They communicate through direct thought transfer and can manipulate matter with their consciousness. They have existed for over 20,000 years, evolving from plant-like organisms that shared nutrients through connected root systems. Carl made notes rapidly. Another cooperative species. They literally grew up sharing everything. The third image showed mechanical beings of various sizes and shapes working together in perfect synchronization. Their movements were precise and calculated with no wasted motion or energy. The Mechanical Collective, Veltar said. Artificial intelligences that achieved consciousness 8,000 years ago. They were created by a species that no longer exist, beings that built them to be perfectly logical and efficient. Elena studied the 3 civilizations, noting the patterns. They're all cooperative by nature. No competition, no conflict between individuals? Correct, Veltar confirmed. Most successful spacefaring species evolve from creatures that survive through cooperation, not competition. Predator species typically destroy themselves before reaching the stars. Rick had been quietly observing from his position near the door. If that's true, how do you handle conflicts between your civilizations? Veltar's colors shifted to a neutral gray. We fight wars, of course. But our conflicts follow established protocols that have been refined over millennia. The holographic display changed to show what appeared to be a battle scene. Elena expected to see destruction and chaos, but instead watched something that looked more like an elaborate dance. Ships moved in predetermined patterns, firing energy beams at specific targets while carefully avoiding others. This is a recorded battle from 50 years ago, Veltar explained. The Kithara and Zephyrians disagreed about mining rights in the Andromeda sector. The conflict lasted 3 months and resulted in 47 casualties. Amy stared at the display. 47 deaths in a 3-month war? The number includes damaged artificial intelligences from the Mechanical Collective, who served as neutral observers, Veltar clarified. Actual biological casualties were 19 Kithara and 12 Zephyrians. Elena watched the battle footage with growing amazement. The alien ships followed strict patterns, almost like they were playing an elaborate game. Energy weapons fired in specific sequences, shields activated according to rigid timing, and damaged vessels withdrew in orderly fashion. It's completely predictable, she said aloud. That is the point, Veltar replied. Warfare should be controlled, logical, and minimize unnecessary destruction. Both sides understand the rules, and victory goes to whoever executes the established strategies most effectively. Carl looked up from his notes. What happens when someone breaks the rules? Veltar's colors darkened to deep purple. That has never happened. The rules exist for the protection of all civilizations. Breaking them would be unthinkable. Elena felt a strange sensation in her stomach, like she was looking at something fundamentally wrong. But what if the rules don't work? What if following them means you lose? Then you accept defeat honorably, Veltar said. The alternative is chaos. Rick stepped forward, his military training obvious in his posture. With respect, Ambassador, that doesn't sound like war. That sounds like a tournament. Your species has a different perspective on conflict, Veltar observed, his hands beginning their familiar trembling. We have studied your historical records. Your wars show no consistent patterns, no logical progression, no respect for established protocols. Elena remembered her history lessons. You mean we adapt our tactics based on what our enemies do? Exactly. Veltar said, his color shifting to alarmed orange. Your military strategies change constantly. You create new weapons, develop unexpected tactics, and ignore previously established rules of engagement. Amy pulled up historical data on her tablet. Is that why you're afraid of us? Because we don't fight fair. We are not afraid, Veltar insisted, though his trembling increased. We are cautious. Your species shows patterns that are unprecedented in galactic history. The holographic display changed to show Earth's history. Elena watched battles from throughout human civilization, from ancient warfare to modern conflicts. Unlike the alien battle footage, human conflicts were chaotic, unpredictable, and constantly evolving. Your warriors adapt to changing conditions, Veltar explained. They use terrain, weather, and available resources as weapons. They develop new technologies during conflicts and implement them immediately. Most disturbing, they often ignore their own established rules when survival is at stake. Elena saw Rick nodding as he watched the display. That's how you survive, he said simply. You use whatever works. Yes, Veltar agreed. That is precisely what makes your species so dangerous. Carl looked confused. But we're not even that. Good at it. We lose wars all the time. You lose battles, Veltar corrected. But your species as a whole learns from every defeat. Each conflict teaches you something new, and you incorporate that knowledge into future strategies. Over time, you become more effective at warfare, not less. Elena began to understand the scope of the problem. You're saying that while your civilizations have perfected warfare, we're still evolving our approach to it. Correct. Our military capabilities reached their peak thousands of years ago. We have achieved perfect efficiency within established parameters. Your species, however, shows no signs of reaching a plateau. You continue to develop new approaches to conflict. Amy scrolled through more data on her tablet. According to this, human conflicts have become more destructive over time, not less. Another concerning pattern? Veltar confirmed. Most species learn to limit destruction as they advance. Humans appear to be moving in the opposite direction. Elena felt a cold realization settling over her. You're not just afraid of what we might do, you're afraid of what we might become. Veltar's colors shifted through several hues before settling on deep red. Your species is approximately 200 years away from achieving interstellar travel capabilities. In that time, based on your historical patterns, you will likely develop new forms of warfare that we cannot predict or counter. Rick crossed his arms. You're assuming we'll be hostile. We are preparing for the possibility, Veltar replied. The Galactic Council has been monitoring your progress and debating appropriate responses. Elena leaned back in her chair, trying to process everything they had learned. What kind of responses? That depends on how this first contact proceeds, Veltar said carefully. If your species demonstrates the ability to integrate peacefully into galactic civilization, you will be welcomed. If not, he didn't finish the sentence, but Elena understood the implications. Humanity was being evaluated, and the results would determine their future in the galaxy. How do we prove we're peaceful? She asked. Veltar's colors shifted to a thoughtful blue. The Galactic Council has prepared a test. A real conflict between the Cathara and Zephyrians that has resisted. Solution for 50 years? If humans can resolve it using peaceful methods, it will demonstrate your species' commitment to cooperation. Elena felt her hands beginning to shake again, but this time she knew it wasn't from nervousness. It was from excitement. Her species was being given a chance to prove itself on a galactic stage. "We accept," she said without hesitation. Veltara's trembling increased. "I was afraid you would say that." The neutral space station looked like something from a dream. Elena pressed her face against the transport window as they approached, watching the massive structure rotate slowly against the starfield. The station was built from all three alien technologies combined, crystalline sections from the Cathara flowing into energy-based Zephyrian architecture, all held together by the precise mechanical work of the collective. "It's beautiful," Amy whispered from the seat beside her. "Like someone built a city out of light and music?" Elena nodded, but her attention was focused on the problem they were about to face. For 50 years, the Cathara and Zephyrians had been fighting over a single star system. The conflict had followed all established galactic protocols, resulting in minimal casualties but no resolution. Now humanity was being asked to solve what the galaxy's best minds had failed to address. "Are you nervous?" Carl asked, adjusting his glasses for the 100th time since they left the New Horizons. "Terrified," Elena admitted, "but also excited. This is our chance to show them who we really are." Rick sat across from them, studying tactical displays on his tablet. "I've been reviewing the conflict data. Both sides have been following the same battle patterns for decades. They're locked in a stalemate because neither side can break the established rules." Elena pulled up her own files. The disputed system contained 3 planets rich in rare minerals that both civilizations needed. The Cathara had discovered it first, but the Zephyrians had settled it first. According to galactic law, both claims were valid, which meant the conflict would continue until one side achieved a decisive victory following approved protocols. "The problem is that their protocols are designed to prevent decisive victories," Elena said. "They're fighting a war that's meant to be fair, not winnable." The transport docked with a soft vibration, and Elena gathered her team. They were met by a mechanical guide, one of the collective's representatives. It stood 7 feet tall with a sleek silver body and blue lights that pulsed in patterns Elena couldn't decipher. "Welcome to Harmony Station," the machine said in a voice like wind chimes. "I am Designate Prime 7. I will escort you to the mediation chamber." Elena followed the mechanical being through corridors that seemed to shift and change as they walked. The station's interior was unlike anything humans had ever built, with walls that showed starfields and floors that felt like walking on solid light. "The Cathara delegation is already present," Prime 7 informed them. "The Zephyrian representatives arrived this morning. Both sides are eager to begin." They entered a large circular room with a dome ceiling that showed the disputed star system in real time. Elena could see the planets orbiting their star, with ships from both civilizations maintaining careful distances. According to established protocols, Veltar stood on one side of the room with 2 other Cathara, their crystalline skin reflecting the starlight in shifting patterns. On the opposite side, 3 Zephyrian beings flickered between solid and energy forms, their shapes constantly changing like living aurora. "Dr. Martinez," Veltar greeted her with the same cautious distance he had maintained on the New Horizons. "We are prepared to present our case." One of the Zephyrians moved forward, its form solidifying into something roughly humanoid. "We are speaker between thoughts," it said in a voice that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "We will communicate our position to your understanding." Elena took a deep breath and addressed both sides. "Before we begin, I need to understand something. You've been fighting this conflict for 50 years. Why hasn't either side achieved victory?" Veltar's colors shifted to confused purple. "Victory requires defeating the enemy according to established protocols. Neither side has been able to accomplish this." "But you've both been following the same strategies for decades," Elena pointed out. "If they haven't worked yet, why do you keep using them?" "Because they are the approved strategies," Speaker Between Thoughts replied. "To use unapproved methods would be to abandon civilization itself." Elena felt a familiar sensation like pieces of a puzzle clicking into place. Amy, Carl, Rick, I need you to review everything we know about this conflict. Not just the official reports, but everything. Her team spread out around the room, pulling up data on their tablets and taking notes. Elena watched them work while the alien delegations waited with patient confusion. Found something, Amy called out after 30 minutes. The original dispute wasn't about mining rights. It was about a scientific expedition. Carl looked up from his tablet. The Cathara sent a research team to study the system's unusual star formation. The Zephyrians sent a group to investigate the same phenomenon from a different angle. Both teams discovered the mineral deposits by accident, Rick added. The conflict started when they couldn't agree on how to share the find. Elena turned to face both delegations. Is this correct? Veltar's colors shifted uncomfortably. The original expedition details are not relevant to the current territorial dispute. Actually, they are, Elena said, her excitement growing. You're not fighting over territory. You're fighting over a misunderstanding that happened 50 years ago. She activated the room's holographic display, showing the disputed system. Both of your species sent scientific teams to study the same phenomenon. When they found valuable minerals, neither side knew how to handle an unexpected discovery that wasn't covered by existing treaties. Speaker between thoughts flickered between forms. The territorial claims supersede the original mission parameters. No, they don't, Elena said firmly. The territorial claims exist because you couldn't figure out how to share a scientific discovery. Instead of working together, you defaulted to the only framework you had for resolving disputes: formal warfare. Amy stood up, her translator equipment in hand. Dr. Martinez is right. Look at the timeline. The first battle didn't happen until 6 months after the discovery. Both sides spent half a year trying to figure out who owned what, then gave up and started fighting instead. Elena began, pacing around the room, her mind racing. You've been following warfare protocols for a scientific dispute. That's why nothing works. You're using the wrong tools for the job. Valtar's hands began trembling. What do you suggest? Stop fighting and start collaborating, Elena said. Both civilizations wanted to study the same phenomenon. Work together. Share the research and split the mineral rights based on contribution to the scientific mission. The room fell silent. Elena could hear the station's environmental systems humming quietly, and somewhere in the distance, the sound of other species going about their daily business. That is impossible, Speaker Between Thoughts finally said. The territorial claims have been established. The conflict parameters are defined. We cannot simply ignore 50 years of legal precedent. Why not? Elena asked. You've been stuck in the same pattern for half a century. It's not working. Because it violates every principle of galactic law, Valtar explained, his colors shifting to agitated orange. Conflicts must be resolved through approved methods. We cannot simply invent new solutions. Elena felt a surge of frustration, but that's exactly what you need to do. Your approved methods don't work for this problem because it's not really a territorial dispute, it's a failure to communicate. Rick stepped forward. In human conflicts, we call this mission creep. You start with one objective and gradually shift to a different one without realizing it. The solution is to go back to your original mission. The original mission was scientific. Research, Carl added. Both sides wanted to study the same thing. The logical solution is to do it together. Elena watched the alien delegations process this information. She could see the confusion in their body language, the way they struggled to understand a concept. That seems simple to human minds. You're asking us to ignore established legal frameworks, Valtar said slowly. I'm asking you to solve your actual problem instead of the problem you think you have, Elena replied. Sometimes the best solution is the one that makes the rules irrelevant. Speaker Between Thoughts flickered rapidly between forms. This approach is unprecedented in galactic history. Maybe that's why it will work, Elena said. You've tried every precedented approach for 50 years. Time to try something new. Amy activated her recording equipment. We could draft a new type of agreement. A joint scientific mission with shared resource allocation based on research contributions. That would require both sides to abandon their territorial claims, Veltar pointed out. Would it? Elena asked. Or would it give you something better? Joint custody of the system for scientific purposes, with mineral rights divided based on who contributes what to the research. She could see the idea taking hold, slowly overcoming thousands of years of established thinking. Prime 7's lights pulsed in what might have been excitement. Such an agreement would require approval from the Galactic Council, Speaker Between Thoughts said. Then let's ask them, Elena said. What's the worst that could happen? They say no, and you go back to fighting a war that neither of you can win? Veltar's colors shifted through several hues before settling on thoughtful blue. Your species thinks in ways that are disturbing. We call it problem-solving, Elena replied. Sometimes the best solution is the one that makes everyone's rules obsolete. The negotiations had been going well for 3 days when everything went wrong. Elena was reviewing the final draft of the joint scientific agreement when the station's emergency alarms started blaring. Red lights flashed throughout the mediation chamber, and Prime 7's blue lights switched to urgent amber. All beings to emergency positions, the mechanical being announced. Unknown vessels approaching at high velocity. This is not a drill. Elena felt her heart rate spike as she looked at the dome ceiling. The peaceful starfield was now filled with dark ships moving in patterns unlike anything she had seen in the galactic warfare footage. These vessels didn't follow formation protocols or maintain safe distances. They swarmed toward the station like angry insects. What are those? Amy asked, her voice tight with fear. Veltar's crystalline skin had turned completely black. Impossible, he whispered. The Devourers were destroyed millennia ago. Speaker Between Thoughts flickered rapidly between forms, its usual calm replaced by something Elena had never seen from a Zephyrian. Panic. Ancient enemy protocols are insufficient. These entities follow no recognized patterns. Rick was already moving toward the door. I need to get to our security team. Elena, stay here with the diplomats. Wait, Elena called after him. What are the Devourers? Prime 7's lights pulsed frantically, mechanical entities of unknown origin. Last encountered 4,000 years ago. Believed extinct after the Great Purge, their warfare methods violated all established protocols. Through the dome, Elena watched the attacking ships reach the station's outer defenses. The station's weapons fired in perfect synchronized patterns, energy beams creating beautiful geometric designs against the darkness. It looked exactly like the battle footage Veltar had shown them days earlier. The Devourer ships ignored the patterns completely. They flew through the defensive fire without any apparent strategy, some ships taking hits while others found gaps that shouldn't have existed. Their return fire was chaotic, random, and devastatingly effective. They're not following the rules, Amy observed, her scientific mind still working despite the terror. That is what makes them dangerous, Veltar said, his colors shifting between black and deep red. Our defensive systems are designed to counter logical attacks. These entities attack without logic. Elena watched a section of the station's outer ring explode in brilliant light. The explosion wasn't clean or controlled like she expected from advanced technology. It was messy, spreading debris in unpredictable directions that interfered with both the station's weapons and the Devourer ships. Your defenses are failing because they're too predictable, she realized aloud. Our defenses are based on thousands of years of tactical evolution, Prime 7 protested. They represent the peak of military efficiency. Against enemies who? Fight like you do, Elena said, her mind racing. But these Devourers fight like... She paused, understanding flooding through her. They fight like humans. Another explosion shook the station. Elena could hear distant alarms and the sound of running footsteps in the corridors outside. Through the communication system, voices reported damage and casualties in the calm, professional tones of beings who had never experienced real chaos. Security. Teams to level 7, someone announced. Breach in Section 12, Defensive Pattern 7 is ineffective. Requesting permission to implement Pattern 8. Elena grabbed Prime 7's arm, surprised by how solid the mechanical being felt. Where's your command center? I need to talk to whoever's running the defense. The command center is restricted to authorized military personnel, Prime 7 replied, but its lights were flickering with uncertainty. I'm with the human delegation, Elena said firmly. And right now, humans might be the only ones who understand. What you're fighting? Veltara's hands were shaking violently. Dr. Martinez, you are not military trained. This situation requires professional response. Your professionals are losing, Elena pointed out as another section of the station suffered. Damage. In the last 5 minutes, how many defensive patterns have failed? Prime 7's lights pulsed as it accessed data. Patterns 7, 8, and 9 have proven ineffective. Pattern 10 is currently being implemented. And Pattern 10 will fail too, Elena predicted. Because you're still trying to fight a logical enemy. These devourers aren't logical, they're adaptive. She was already moving toward the door. Amy and Carl followed her while Speaker Thoughts and Veltar remained frozen in confusion. Prime 7's programming finally overcame its restrictions, and it led them through corridors filled with running figures from all three galactic civilizations. The command center was a marvel of cooperative technology. Kithara crystal displays showed tactical information, Zephyrian energy interfaces allowed direct thought control, and mechanical collective processing units calculated defensive strategies at impossible speeds. Everything worked in perfect harmony to manage a battle they were steadily losing. Human delegation requesting access, Prime 7 announced. The Kithara commander, a being even larger than Veltar, turned with obvious irritation. This is not the time for diplomatic observers? Elena ignored protocol and walked directly to the main tactical display. The station's defenses were arranged in concentric circles, each layer designed to channel attacking forces into predetermined kill zones. It was elegant, efficient, and completely useless against an enemy that refused to be channeled. Your defensive patterns assume the enemy wants to minimize losses, she said, studying the display. But look at their attack routes. They're accepting massive casualties to achieve unpredictable positions. Amy joined her at the display. It's like they're using their own destroyed ships as cover and weapons. Impossible, the commander said. No rational military force would sacrifice resources without strategic benefit. Elena watched the Devourer ships on the display, noting how they moved. Some ships made suicidal runs that accomplished nothing except destroying defensive emplacements. Others hung back, apparently doing nothing, until they suddenly struck at unexpected targets. They're not rational, she said. That's the point. Rick, where are you? Rick's voice came through the communication system. Sublevel 5 with our security detail. The station's guards don't know how to handle close combat. These devourers fight like pirates, not soldiers. Elena felt a chill of recognition. Commander, do you have footage of human military conflicts in your databases? Some historical records were provided by your delegation, the commander admitted. Show me human urban warfare. Any conflict where human forces were outnumbered and surrounded. The display changed to show footage from Earth's history. Elena watched human soldiers moving through damaged buildings, using debris as cover, creating weapons from available materials, and coordinating through simple hand signals rather than complex communication systems. Now show me the current Devourer attack patterns, she requested. The similarities were unmistakable. The Devourers moved like human soldiers under pressure, adapting to terrain, using destroyed sections of the station as cover and creating new attack routes from moment to moment. They learned from you, Amy whispered. Somehow they studied human warfare. Carl pulled up historical data on his tablet. The timeline fits. The Devourers disappeared around the same time humans developed organized military tactics. Elena felt the pieces clicking together. They've been watching human civilization develop. They learned our approach to warfare and combined it with advanced technology. That is a terrifying possibility, the commander said, his crystalline skin turning pale blue. It's worse than that, Elena realized. They're not just copying human tactics. They're improving on them. They have thousands of years of technological advancement plus human adaptability. Another explosion shook the command center. Elena watched the tactical display update with more failed defensive positions. At their current rate of loss, the station would fall within hours. We need to change our approach, she said to the commander. Stop using your established patterns. Start thinking like humans. We do not know how to think like humans. The commander replied helplessly. Elena looked around the command center at all the advanced beings who had mastered technology beyond human understanding, but who were losing to an enemy that fought like her own species. Then let humans fight them, she said. Rick's voice came through the communication system again. Elena, I need authorization to modify the station's defensive systems. The current setup is designed for your kind of warfare, not ours. Elena turned to the commander. Give him access. Let humans design your defense. That would violate every established protocol, the commander protested. Your protocols are getting everyone killed, Elena said bluntly. How many beings have died in the last hour following your established methods? Prime 7's lights pulsed as it accessed casualty reports. 147 confirmed deaths. 238 wounded. Elena felt her hands shaking with anger and adrenaline. In human warfare, those are massive casualties for such a short engagement. You're not just losing the battle, you're being slaughtered. She activated the communication system herself. Rick, you have full authorization. Modify whatever you need. Elena, you don't have the authority to give that order, the commander pointed out. The battle turned around in ways the galaxy had never seen before. Elena watched from the command center as Rick coordinated the station's defenses using methods that violated every established military protocol. Instead of the elegant geometric patterns the aliens preferred, the station's weapons now fired in chaotic bursts that seemed random but somehow worked. Devourer formation approaching Section 4, Amy reported, monitoring the tactical displays. They're using the same flanking pattern that failed 20 minutes ago. Not anymore, Rick's voice came through the communication system. I've moved our weapons to cover the approach they expect to be safe. Classic misdirection. Elena watched the Devourer ships move into what they thought was a blind spot, only to find themselves facing concentrated fire from unexpected angles. The alien ships scattered, their formation breaking apart as they tried to adapt to the new defensive pattern. Impossible, the Cathara commander whispered. They should have detected the weapon repositioning. They did, Elena explained. But Rick moved the weapons after they started their approach. They committed to a strategy based on information that was already outdated. Carl looked up from his tablet where he was tracking the battle statistics. Human forces have been doing this for thousands of years. Change your tactics faster than the enemy can respond to them. The Devourer ships regrouped and tried a different approach, concentrating their forces for a massive assault on the station's main docking bay. It was exactly the kind of logical response the galaxy's military strategists would have predicted. Rick, they're massing for a direct assault, Elena called out. I see them, Rick replied. And they're about to learn why humans don't like fair fights. Instead of reinforcing the docking bay's defenses, Rick shut down the bay's shields entirely. The Devourers rushed forward, expecting an easy victory, only to discover that the bay was now filled with explosive charges that Rick had improvised from the station's industrial equipment. The explosion was spectacular and devastating. Elena felt the station shake as a quarter of the Devourer fleet was destroyed in a single moment. The remaining ships pulled back, clearly confused by tactics that made no logical sense. You used our own station as a weapon, Prime 7 observed. Its lights pulsing with what might have been admiration or horror. Rick used everything as a weapon, Elena corrected. That's what humans do. We don't just fight with our equipment. We fight with our environment. Speaker between thoughts flickered, rapidly between forms. The Devourers are retreating. Their attack patterns have become completely unpredictable. Elena studied the tactical display and saw that the alien was right. The Devourer ships were moving erratically, no longer following even their own chaotic strategies. They seemed confused, almost panicked. They learned human tactics, she realized aloud, but they didn't learn human adaptability. They can copy our methods, but they can't think like us? Rick appeared in the command center, his uniform torn and his face streaked with smoke. The remaining ships are pulling back. I don't think they'll try another assault. How can you be certain? Veltar asked, his colors shifting between relief and lingering fear. Because they're acting like humans who just ran into something they don't understand, Rick replied. When humans face a superior enemy, we retreat and figure out a new approach. They're doing the same thing. Elena watched the Devourer ships withdraw to a safe distance where they began moving in tight formations. After hours of chaotic attack patterns, they were suddenly following precise, predictable protocols. They're scared, she said with sudden understanding. For the first time in thousands of years, they encountered an enemy that out-adapted them. They're falling back on programmed behaviors because their learned tactics failed. Amy activated her recording equipment. This is unprecedented. We just watched an artificial intelligence have what humans would call a panic response. The command center fell quiet as everyone processed what had happened. The most advanced military minds in the galaxy had been helpless against the Devourers. But a single human using improvised tactics had turned the battle around in less than an hour. Your species fought them to a standstill, the Cathara commander said slowly. In 60 minutes you accomplished what our combined fleets failed to do in the historical records. Elena felt the familiar trembling in her hands, but now she understood. What it meant, we didn't fight them to a standstill. We scared them into retreating. There's a difference. Prime 7's lights cycled through several colors. The implications are significant. If humans can counter Devourer tactics, they represent the galaxy's best defense against future attacks. Or our greatest threat, Veltar added quietly. The same capabilities that saved us today could be turned against us tomorrow. Elena looked around the command center at all the beings who had just watched her species in action. She could see the fear in their eyes, mixed with gratitude and something that might have been respect. That's the choice you have to make, she said. You can trust us or fear us, but you can't do both. Speaker Between Thoughts solidified into a more stable form. The Galactic Council will need to convene an emergency session. This situation changes everything. Elena walked to the main viewing window, looking out at the star field where the Devourer ships were still visible in the distance. What kind of changes are you talking about? Veltar joined her at the window, maintaining his usual careful distance. Before today, the question was whether humans could integrate peacefully into galactic civilization. Now the question is whether galactic civilization can survive without human protection. Carl looked up from his tablet. That's a complete reversal of our situation. Yes, Veltar agreed. 3 days ago, we were evaluating whether to allow humans into the galaxy. Now we must consider whether to ask you to defend it. Elena turned away from the window to face the assembled beings. And what if we say no? The question hung in the air like a physical weight. Elena could see each being, processing the implications, understanding for the first time that humanity held all the cards in this negotiation. Then the galaxy remains vulnerable to threats we cannot counter, the Cathara commander admitted. The Devourers may return with new strategies. There may be other dangers we have never encountered. Rick wiped smoke from his face with his sleeve. You're asking us to be your military specialists. We are asking you to be our guardians, Prime 7 corrected. The galaxy needs protectors who can adapt to threats we cannot predict. Elena felt a strange mix of emotions. Pride at her species. Capabilities, concern about the responsibility being offered, and something else she couldn't quite identify. What would you offer in return? She asked. Full access to galactic technology, Veltar said immediately. Scientific cooperation, cultural exchange, and representation on the Galactic Council. Plus unrestricted expansion rights, Speaker Between Thoughts. added, "Your species would be free to explore and colonize without the limitations we originally planned to impose." Elena looked at her team. Amy was practically glowing with excitement at the prospect of unlimited scientific cooperation. Carl was already taking notes about cultural exchange possibilities. Rick maintained his professional composure, but she could see him calculating the strategic advantages. "There's one more thing," Elena said. "We want the truth about why our hands shake." Valtara's colors shifted to confused purple. "I do not understand." "You said my hands shake when I talk about peace." Rick's hands were steady when he was fighting for our lives. "We want to understand what you see in us that we don't see in ourselves." Valtar was quiet for a long moment, his crystalline skin cycling through several colors. "Your hands shake because your entire species is always ready for war, even when you speak of peace. You cannot turn off your survival instincts. Every human carries the capacity for violence just beneath the surface, waiting to emerge when needed." Elena felt a chill of recognition. "That's why you're afraid of us." "That is why we need you," Valtar corrected. "Most species in the galaxy have evolved beyond their survival instincts. We have become peaceful because we forgot how to be dangerous, you remember." Elena looked down at her hands, noting the slight tremor that had been present throughout their entire mission. "So when we speak of peace, our bodies prepare for war." "Yes," Veltar said simply. "And that contradiction makes you the most terrifying and most valuable species in the galaxy." Elena extended her hand toward Veltar, the same gesture she had offered during their first meeting. This time, after a moment's hesitation, he reached out with one of his forearms and took her hand in his. "Partnership, then," Elena said. "Not membership. We work together as equals." "Agreed," Veltar replied, though Elena noticed his hand was shaking now too. As they shook hands to seal humanity's new role in galactic civilization, Elena realized that her own hands had finally stopped trembling. For the first time since the mission began, she felt completely steady. "Why aren't my hands shaking anymore?" she asked. Valtara's colors shifted to what she had learned indicated amusement. "Because you are no longer pretending to be something you are not. You have accepted what your species truly is." Elena looked out at the stars, knowing that humanity's real journey was just beginning.